Hi everyone. This is a redo of a video that I posted yesterday, and a couple hours after posting, I saw that there was a comment noting that there was a clock ticking, which I later realized is a clock that is off to my right. Tiny clock that I've had for many, many years. It is really, really hard to hear, but for some reason in the video, it was very, very easy to hear. So I watched a few clips, mulled what to do, and then just decided to strike or delete the video and do a new one. So the battery has been removed from the clock. Shouldn't hear it. I have no laundry going, I have no wash going. You may hear a dog walk around a little bit, but he looks pretty passed out right now, so we should be safe there as well. So this video, I am going to talk about records that remind me of New York City. I lived in New York for 7 years after college. I was raised actually in northern New Jersey, about 25 minutes outside of Manhattan, maybe 30 minutes. And my father for a period actually lived on 33rd and 3rd in Manhattan, and I spent quite a bit of time there. So in addition, we went to a lot of Yankee games back then in the dreaded 80s when the Yankees were terrible. I don't know, I think there was a few winning seasons maybe, but mostly not a good period. 70s, had a couple championships, and then the 90s got great again. So this is a tribute to what I still consider to be my home, New Jersey / New York. A good friend of mine who lives in Manhattan has been sending me videos every night, right after the 7 p.m. sort of everybody opening up their windows and cheering and playing music, and cars are honking horns, and all in tribute to the folks on the front lines during this period, which of course New York would do that. That's what a wonderful place, and what sort of a thoughtful and smart place New York is. And every night when he sends those to me, it I don't know, warms my heart. It's just very, very sweet, especially given what's happening in New York on a daily basis. So this is my small little tribute to the place that I love, place that I miss, place that I cannot wait to get back to see my friends, to see hopefully the New York Yankees play again someday in the not too distant future, to see music there, just to see the people. I can walk around. I used to go to New York a lot for work, and oftentimes on Friday afternoon after my sort of final meeting, I would just walk around the city, maybe step in to a place, get a bite to eat, meet a friend, go record shopping, and I just loved it. And I really miss New York. So this is for the city that I love. Real quick, I had noted what these posters are behind me. As you can see, I'm in a different position. I'm in my sort of little dining area. And I moved over here because there appears to be better light coming from a couple different angles. These posters behind me, the first one over here is a poster for the Replacements at the Riot Fest in Denver in 2013. I flew out for that. This is Golden Smog, easy to see. A promo poster for their record Down by the Old Mainstream, which was their first full length after an EP. That's sort of one of my favorite supergroups, members of the Jayhawks, Soul Asylum, Jayhawks, the Honey Dogs, Wilco, and Run Westy Run. And in addition, from time to time, Jody Stevens from Big Star would play drums when Noah Levy of the Honey Dogs would not. And there was a few other sort of artists that came in and out, but a tremendous supergroup. Over here is a painting of, it's not a painting, it's a poster of a painting of Henry Miller from the Henry Miller Library in Big Sur, which is one of my favorite places in the world. Go there all the time. I've probably been there about 50 times. Just a beautiful place to to read books and listen to music, and I've seen some great shows there. Saw Bonnie Prince Billy there. Saw Philip Glass perform after the movie Koyaanis Gatsku. I'm not going to get that pronunciation right, which is about climate change. That was a tremendous night. Philip Glass, a very sweet guy. And in the last video, there was a baseball bat, sort of just the top of it. It was in the frame. It's not this time, but somebody had asked what the significance was, so I figured I'll share. This I won in, I believe it was an auction. 4 members of the band The Baseball Project, which is another supergroup, similar to Golden Smog. Members Scott McCoy from the -5, as well as he was the 5th member of REM for a while. Mike Mills from REM. Steve Wynn from the Dream Syndicate, and Linda Pittman, who I think was in the Dream Syndicate. I think her and Steve Wynn are married. She's played with a bunch of acts, tremendous drummer. So this is The Baseball Project. If you haven't heard their records, they are fantastic. They're about baseball, but they're great even if you're not a big baseball fan. So highly recommend checking them out. So before I get into New York, just a couple quick things. This is the one record that I've bought during this period that we're all in, and this is a box set that I got a few days ago. The Staple Singers, Come Go With Me. The Staple Singers, the Stax collection. There's, I think, 7 records in here. I love the Staple Singers. I'm a huge fan of Mavis Staples. All of her solo records, especially in the last 10 years, have just been tremendous, which is remarkable, given that I think she's 80 now. So I look forward to spending some time with that box set in the next few days. I played the first record this morning, loved it, talked to my mom about it. I'll take you there, send her that video just to remind her of who they were. So that is my one purchase during this period. And then I also have to mention John Prine, who passed away recently as a result of this virus. I was, prior to a couple weeks ago when he first got sick, and a bunch of my friends who adore John Prine, I was talking to them about him, started to listen to him. Prior to this, I knew like his bigger songs, Angel from Montgomery and Sam Stone and a few others, but I'd never really gone in deep, and I've been listening to him more than anyone the last few weeks. And it's been tremendous. What a songwriter, and what, by all accounts, a beautiful person he was. He seems to be adored by tons of musicians, from Jason Isbell to Bruce Springsteen to Sturgill Simpson. He left an incredible mark, and it seems like people just keep talking about him every day. His legacy is not fading, or will not fade, clearly. The song that I love is called Lake Marie, that I keep playing. I think that's the title. Such a beautiful song. There's a great YouTube clip of him performing that song. If I have the title wrong, I apologize. But this is a record that has a ton of great tracks. I'm going to listen to it again today, and it's really sad to have lost John Prine, a legend and one of the all-time greats. And as I said, by all accounts, just a really deep and sweet man. There's a great cover of, he does a great cover of Clay Pigeons by Blaze Foley, which is also on YouTube. Highly recommend checking that out. I've seen that probably about 100 times, and that's well in advance. I've been a Blaze Foley fan for many years, and that is a tremendous performance. So now into New York, and I'm going to start with Simon and Garfunkel's Bridge Over Troubled Water. And I start with this because I saw this concert on HBO. I think I was 8 years old. It aired in 1982, and I remember the only place in our home where we had HBO was in my parents' room. I'm not sure why. And I remember I used to watch, I mean, we may have only had cable in my parents' room, because I remember I used to watch Knicks games on, I think they were still on MSG back then, I think, or whatever was prior to MSG. I used to watch those games on their bedroom floor, and I remember I was watching this, and it was time for dinner. It's my first exposure to Simon and Garfunkel, and clearly remember my mother calling me for dinner and me just begging her to let me keep watching this. She allowed it, and I'll never forget it. I think it was the first experience of music discovery on my own. Earlier as a kid, I'd been exposed to Bruce Springsteen. My dad was a huge fan, played a lot of Born to Run, Darkness, The River, Nebraska. And then a few years after this, of course, Born in the USA. My mother would play Elvis and the Everly Brothers and a lot of Motown stuff. But this I found on my own. And I remember I was completely blown away. It was probably the beginning of me sort of finding my own sort of path in terms of musical discovery. Simon and Garfunkel. Can't mention New York without mentioning Velvet Underground. This is the Velvet Underground and Nico. This is an incredible record. Of course, the famous Andy Warhol painting on the front cover. So many great tracks on here. All Tomorrow's Parties, Sunday Morning, Heroin, There She Goes Again, I'll Be Your Mirror, Femme Fatale, great cover of that by REM and many, many other artists. This is New York, in the 60s and 70s. I don't know what year this record came out. Does it say on the back? No. But I love the Velvet Underground. Are they the beginning of indie rock? Maybe. They're certainly in the conversation. So I had to mention that one. While I was living in New York, there were a few records that sort of stand out from that period for me. This is one. This is I Feel Alright by Steve Earle. One of his comeback records after he got out of prison. Steve Earle sort of has two great periods, pre-jail and post-jail. Prior, he released such great records as Copperhead Road, Guitar Town, Exit Zero. And then when he got out, this is actually my favorite period of Steve Earle. This record came out in 1996. So I Feel Alright, Train A-Comin', El Corazon, and there's one more, Transcendental Blues. And The Mountain also with the Del McCoury Band. That was one heck of a run. But this has always been my favorite. I Feel Alright. I saw Steve Earle at the Lakeside Lounge in New York City. My friend Eric Campbell used to own that bar on Avenue B and 11th, between 11th and 12th, I think. Spent almost every weekend there for years and many weekdays. Saw some incredible acts there, but Steve Earle, I remember I was working in Midtown at the time, and that buddy of mine, Eric Campbell, who goes by the name Roscoe, sent me an American Online instant message just saying, get to the Lakeside at, I think it was 5 p.m. I didn't even ask why. Whenever he did that, it meant it was going to be something special, and it was Steve Earle. So I told a few of my friends, maybe 5 or 6 of them, we all met there and saw one of the best shows we've ever seen. Steve Earle, huge catalog, check it out. Next, again, dear to me, I've mentioned this on a previous video, Sun Volt to the Bottom Line, February 12th, 1996. This aired on WNEW at the time, which was a huge deal for Sun Volt. I drove down, I was up in Boston at the time. My college friend and I, we drove down to this show. It was one of the coldest nights I ever remember experiencing in my entire life. And Sun Volt just put on an unbelievable show. We sat stage right if you're looking at the stage, and it was just a blistering set. I don't think this is available on streaming services. Double check, but it's one of my favorite live shows. And it was Sun Volt at their peak. So give it a listen. A great, great personal memory with a good friend of mine. This is probably number one in terms of New York for me. Born to Run, Springsteen. Especially the song Meeting Across the River. The opening line, if I can find it. Here it is. The opening lines. Hey Eddie, can you lend me a few bucks? And tonight, can you get us a ride? Gonna make it through the tunnel? Got a meeting with a man on the other side. To me, that's New Jersey tied to New York. And I remember listening to this song oftentimes when we'd be going over the George Washington Bridge. I remember every time we went to Yankee games, we would take the GW Bridge, and we would either take the upper level or the lower level. And every time we would approach, my father would ask me, "What do you want, upper or lower?" Almost every time I chose the upper because it was a prettier view, which at 10 years old, I guess that mattered to me. Once in a while, pulled an audible and said lower level. But this record came out when I was a baby. But a few years later, my father was still playing it regularly. And these songs just remind me of the times we spent in New York. Whether at his apartment, there was a burger place that we used to always go to. It's Jackson Hole. I think it's still open. He used to always take us there in the 80s. When we go to and from Yankee games, which was often, this record will be played. Backstreets, Jungle Land, 10th Avenue Freeze. This is just breathes New York City. So this is the top of the heap in terms of New York records for me. About halfway through. Next, I'll try to pick up the pace a little bit. Next, just in terms of the punk scene and CBGBs, and I could fill 10 easily if I put in some Patti Smith records. But this is New York for me. Television, Marquee Moon, one of my favorite records of that period, one of my favorite records ever. I saw Television in San Francisco maybe 5 years ago, and they were tremendous. And this record, 8 songs, every track's great. Tom Verlaine, Richard Lloyd, Fred Smith, and Billy Figa? I don't know the drummer's name. It came out in 1977 on Elektra. Looks like maybe Rhino, of little surprise. Everything Rhino reissues is incredible. One of the best records ever made. And just all New York. Television, Marquee Moon. One of my favorite bands while I was in New York was Luna. Great indie pop band. This record, Luna Park, is one of their earlier ones. Slide, Anesthesia, Smile, Hey Sister, just a great record. Dean Wareham, who is sort of a jack of all trades now, he's in some movies, but he is without doubt one of my favorites of the period. Luna, I listened to all their records. I have a box set of theirs called Long Players, which is where I pulled this from. I don't know if this has ever been released on its own on vinyl. May have been, but not positive. Luna, great band. This is one that's a little harder to verbalize. This is Wilco's Yankee Hotel Foxtrot, the record that really put them on sort of the commercial map, the record that shrouded and label uproar, and it was originally rejected by their label at the time. They asked to be let go, and then it turned out that the same parent company ended up buying the record again. This reminds me of New York because of 9/11. Wilco started streaming this record in, I think it was August of 2001. Didn't get a proper release until 2002, but when they were streaming it, it's a very haunting record. Tall buildings shake, voices escape, singing sad songs. That's one of many sort of lines that feels as though it was written post 9/11, but to many people's surprise, they were not. These songs were written before that awful day. I remember seeing Wilco just 2 weeks after 9/11 at Town Hall. They played 2 shows. It was two of the strangest shows I've ever seen. The band looked uneasy and sort of didn't really know if they should be there, similar to the audience. Both shows, I believe, were sold out, but it was incredibly quiet, and it was just a weird feeling. So when I hear this record always sounds more sort of on point when I'm in New York, when I listen to it. Oftentimes when I get to New York, I play this record, and it reminds me of that time. And reminds me of a lot of the good things that came out of that awful day, similar to what we're seeing in New York right now. But Yankee Hotel Foxtrot, it's got the Chicago Towers, which would make a lot of people think reminds them of Chicago or Illinois or the Midwest, but for me it's New York. And I love this record. Next is a favorite, Freddie Johnston, This Perfect World. This came out in 1994. It's produced by Butch Vig, who was in Garbage and produced a lot of great records, I believe. Was reissued in 2018. It was a very limited release, 374 copies. Freddie signed them. I've met Freddie a couple times while I lived in New York. A very underrated or unheralded, I don't know what the word is, singer-songwriter who should be much more widely known. Basically all of his records are great. So Freddie Johnston, he was from Hoboken. I don't know where he lives now. But when I think of New York and New Jersey and seeing shows, I think of Freddie, because he was sort of in the middle of it all. Last New York one, I have yet to open, but I couldn't really do this without mentioning The Strokes, because I was in New York when this record came out. I actually saw The Strokes and Got It by Voices play on New Year's, I think it was 1999, up at the Apollo Theater in Harlem. It was a tremendous show. They played till like 2 or 2:30 in the morning. Then my buddy Brian and I, we stayed out until 8 in the morning, I think. It was a rowdy night. But this Strokes record, it was right in the center of my time living in New York. Is this it? I think they're, without question, their best one. And it's probably time that I take the plastic off. The Strokes actually just released a new record, The New Abnormal, this past Friday, which I've heard is pretty good. I heard one song, liked it, and I'm going to go back to it in the next few days. That's it for New York. Now I have to close out, as I promised that I will do, with an album that I wish more people knew, a record that I love. On that point, I forgot to thank my friend Maslov. Some people call him Mazzy. He and I did sort of a video collaboration on that we called Under the Radar, 5 records that we wish other people knew about. We did that a few days ago, and subsequent to that, I got many more subscribers, which is what happens when Maslov mentions somebody, because he's got a big following. So I thank you very much, Mazzy. It was a lot of fun. I look forward to doing it again. Maybe we can do it here, or maybe probably on your channel. You got more folks. And I'm glad you and the Archivist are doing well up in Seattle. And here is the album that I wish more people knew about. So this is the Salvation Blues by Mark Olson. Mark Olson was in the Jayhawks. He has been in and out of the Jayhawks. This is a fantastic record. It was reissued, looks like 2009. Great singer-songwriter record. You know, most people think about the Jayhawks, they typically think of Gary Loris. I love them both. They did a record together. They've just had a very up and down relationship, but the Salvation Blues from top to bottom is a great record. It should be on streaming services, or you can try to find the vinyl. Mark Olson, what a talent, what a singer-songwriter. And that's it. New York. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope there aren't any clocks ticking in the background. And I hope you are well, and I will chat with you all soon.